Remember Me is one of those games that is always seen in the bargain bin or on the online discount tab of your preferred console, and you always went and looked at it and went, oh yeah, maybe when it's on sale. Like yeah, it looked cool, but that amount of money? No, we're not doing that today. But when it showed up on my Steam wishlist and it was on sale, I kind of went, yeah, why not? I've been putting it off for literal years, and I really regret not picking it up sooner. DONTnod, the Life of Strange Developer's debut game, begins with an advertisement for Memorize. A series of endorsements tells us what this company does. They share, delete, or change memories. A woman talks about how she and her husband have never been closer after they shared each other's memories. A man talks about the moment the war stops and how he is happy that those memories are backed up on the Sensen server. An older woman says that her husband lives on in her head. But see that thing on the back of her head? The little pop-up HUD element? That's Sensen. It's an interface, I think. The game doesn't really describe it, which is fine. It is a high concept idea, and the explanation would probably bog the game's narrative down heaps. The real game opens up with our protagonist Nilin getting her memory wiped in a correctional centre. She's what's known as a memory hunter, people with a gift or skill that access people's memories, taking them, altering them, or simply viewing them. This game's opening is really fucking good at setting the scene. We're in Neo Paris and the game wants you to know. A man named Edge helps us escape the correctional centre and into the sewers. And now we stop worrying about the plot for a little while and we can talk about the presentation. First off, graphics. For a game released in 2013 and a game from a then unknown developer, this game looks fucking good. Textures are blurry and low res, sure, but they don't feel outdated or old. Facial performances of some of the characters are weird. Some of the character designs feel a bit strange, but then you remember where this game takes place and the strange fashion makes a little bit more sense. This game is set in Neo Paris, or future Paris in the year 2084, a reference to George Orwell's 1984, I imagine, perhaps, who knows. So the weird faction is literally explained by it being Paris, and Paris is home to God knows how many fashion shows per year. But the setting of Neo Paris is hardly a new idea, nor is it one that hasn't been explored in the years before Remember Me's release. But it's a setting that is both dystopia and utopia. Sometimes it's both in the same shot. Its unique mixing of French iconography like the Eiffel Tower and cyberpunk aesthetics creates a really interesting setting that really sends the game's presentation to the next level. The more sci-fi utopic parts of the world are shiny white and littered with metal platings and random computers. But then the lower to the ground you get, and the further away from the city centre, you get these dark, dingy places filled with old buildings. It's an interesting idea to juxtapose the neon-lit streets in the business district with streets lit with those little light tubes found at servos around the planet. But the thing is, ultimately, it looks like Paris. It has the same bones as modern-day Paris, it's just a little bit more into the future. It's not like the Eiffel Tower is now adorned with LED screens talking about products, it's just there untouched, but it's been outsized by skyscrapers as people living and working in the city skyrockets. A focus on sci-fi aesthetics can often make places feel boring or even ugly. It's often even too clean or far too post-apocalyptic. Remember Me sits in that middle ground. Some places are clean, but most are dirty, which might make it sound like it's all a bit too similar to each other, like it's boring, but I wouldn't call any location within this game boring or ugly. Despite a couple of them being sterile places like a surgeon's operating theatre, they all manage to tell a story or communicate atmosphere effectively. A big part of that is just a very strong knowledge and use of lighting. Remember Me knows when to use light. It shows. It uses it to showcase where to go, or in some cases, where not to go. It showcases good and evil. It's quite common as well to have light being shaped by objects in the scene. My favourite place in the whole game are the 404 slums. Name aside, it just has an energy that I really appreciate. The first introduction has you walking through food stalls, clothing stores, and even introduces a social hierarchy, all without explicitly stating it. Something that many games struggle with. And coming off the back of my last video, which was Hunt Down the Freeman, I extra appreciate this. It's not often that a game's world is what I focus on for visuals. I often would gloss over it with the exception of games like American McGee's Alice, for example. But saying that, we do need to talk about some of the game's designs for enemies, as they are quite basic. Guards just wear monochromatic armor and they hit you with batons. They're faceless, without personality, something which makes sense given the narrative, but I don't know, it's boring, it's uninspired. But then again, the game makes up for it in other aspects. The other dominant enemy throughout the game are leapers, a side effect of memory wiping that occurs sometimes. They're insane and their bodies change because of the operation. The game never goes into why this happens, which is good because it would cheapen the effect. While they do just look like the normal zombie enemies in any other game, I think it's fine because they are, in terms of visuals, pitted against the previously mentioned monochromatic guards, which creates this interesting juxtaposition against civil society's clean nature and the forgotten underbody's more animalistic nature. We do also have robots that pop up from time to time as well, and the designs are really interesting. They were obviously designed with great care and consideration for making them seem usable within the world. They are obviously built out of parts with the seams made visible, a touch I appreciate. Another thing that I really love about this game is voice acting and music. It's just so well done here. Let's start first with voice acting. Well, our protagonist, Millen's voice actor, Kezia Burrows, who also did Amanda Ripley in Alien Isolation by the way, delivers a honestly really invigorating performance here.
But the risks Tommy and Edge have taken to free me have got me feeling troubled. Now they want me to punish Neo-Paris's privileged few. Edge talks about a clandestine mission.
Edge! Edge! This is only a partial restore. There are still holes. I can feel them. Blind spots. It's not the whole picture.
Something's wrong.
Line delivery is almost perfect. A few lines don't really hit the emotion of a scene, and some stupid one-liners really stand out.
The name is Millen. This time, you'll remember me.
But acting here during cinematics, for example, is top-notch. I also want to give special mention to the man who plays Edge, Emmanuel Bonami, because some of his lines in this game are some of the best deliveries I've heard in a game in a while. But I cannot show them to you yet, as it would be spoilers. So I'll point them out for you later.
The best. Other hunters merely pillage memories, but you can remix them. And above all, you are an errorist, just like me.
Why did they do this to me?
You were a revolutionary fighter, and my best agent. We all fought to assure that no firm might build a monopoly on all human memories. But I
The
failed.
music? Well, the track Nil and the Memory Hunter probably sells it best. It's classical mixed with electronica. It's a bold choice and it does it well. It really showcases the Neo-Paris atmosphere. It's the old mixed with the new, but the new is overpowering sometimes. But the old is always there, creeping back in. I really like it. The music that plays during combat is similarly also good. It's basically Hearth music. And now we can talk about the gameplay, because frankly, that's what we're all here for. Remember Me is an action-adventure game. The combat is a softcore version of the Arkham games, and we do a lot of 3D platforming. Not the floating platform kind, but the jumping the handhelds and shimmying kind. The kind that actually works. And, well, if I was to compare the platforming to another game, it would just be Uncharted. Pick any of them. You jump from ground to ledge, you jump to another one, and maybe you shimmy a little and then you're back on the ground again. It never goes past that in terms of complexity. Sometimes maybe the wall's electrified and you have to wait for it to turn off, but that is the extent of danger during platforming. Unless you take into account the controls, because this, dear audience, is a massive, massive problem for this game. But I will explain more later when we talk about combat. But for now, well, the platforming is super clunky. It is so common to jump from ground to a ledge and Ilan will just fall well short or not grab it. Sometimes the aggressive dead zoning on your movement stops you from even getting the speed needed. And yes, dead zoning, a phrase I use constantly on this channel because apparently I'm chronically attracted to dead zones in games or something, I don't know. But I had to play this on the controller because of how weird the input delay and overall feel of the mouse and keyboard controls were. The mouse control over the camera can be compared to controlling a bike with no handlebars. There was no control, it was sloppy at best. I do wish that I could just stop playing with dead zones. You know, I want games to no longer have dead zones. Because at this point, I think half the videos on my channel have me complaining about dead zones in them. That's far more than it should have at this point. And I guess that brings me to the meat and potatoes of Remember Me. The combat. Well, the combat in a word is Arkham. It is a 1v5 arena brawler. You get these little pop-ups when an enemy is attacking and you have to dodge to avoid being hit. There's no counter or parry mechanic though, something I do wish this had. But if you've played an Arkham game before, you have experienced this combat before. With one important exclusion though. Remember Me's entire gimmick is its combo system. And it's interesting to say the least. Some would even say pointless or misleading. And I would agree with them on that. You basically make your own combos. The game gives you the ability to make a combo, but you have to put an X attack where the game says put an X attack. That X attack there could be any 4 types of attacks, which they are effectively different modifiers. It could be a power attack which does more damage. It can be a healing attack which heals, obviously. It could be a cooldown attack which reduces the cooldown of special abilities, or it could be a chain attack which amplifies the previous attack's effect. And this all sounds pretty good on paper, and it does for a while in game as well. The first hour or so was really interesting as you learn different combos, and then you pick some and you see which ones you like the look of and all that. But well, the real problem just shows up after a while, and it is just noticeable from the first combat sequence. Something is off with the controls, like majorly off. And it took me a while to actually figure out what it was, because it's very subtle. The game sometimes, and I mean sometimes, ignores the first button press in a combo. For example, if we try to do the XYY combo, it thinks the attack combo started with a Y, despite me hitting X first. And this, to be fair, is not a massive problem, as the game isn't all that difficult. But it could be if you played on the highest difficulty. I've played on normal and I did struggle at times just due to enemy volume, and some of the late game enemies have unique effects to say the least. But it might not be a problem for you, because as far as I can tell, only some people have actually had this problem. And it makes me wonder, is it to do with me using a wireless Xbox One controller? Or is it me playing at 144 frames per second? I ultimately don't know, but I'm going to bring it up anyway, because who knows? It might be something that just makes you look at the game and go, yeah, nah, I'm good. Plus, this problem might also not even be there on console. It might be an entirely PC-specific problem. But, that aside, the combat overall is fun. It's simple, but it has enough to it that it never really gets boring. Plus, combat is only, 80 or so % of the game? It's the majority, sure, but there's enough variation in it to change it up. Enemy variety is something I touched on earlier, but only in terms of visuals. So let's talk about what these different enemy types actually add to the experience. So we have leapers, but these ones absorb strength from other leapers, so you have to kill the smaller leapers first, and then attack the big boy. We have guards that hurt you when you attack them due to a shield or something. This is fine because you can just spam your healing combo to get the health back, or you can use an ability. Or just spam power attacks and overload them, literally making their brains explode with the power of memories. That's fucking metal, dude. We also have guards later on that control leapers. The leapers here seem stronger than their non-controlled counterparts, but it is just a really nice way of upping the ante in regards to combat, mixing the two factions together and merging the two different combat loops. But in addition to enemy variety, we also have a ranged attack that doesn't have too much of a use case, but they do come in handy sometimes, in both combat and puzzle sections. You can either shoot a barrage of low power bolts or a big old high damage one that might be enough to one-shot most lower health enemies like standard leapers and guards. It also just feels kind of nice. The vibration of the controller is actually pretty decent, so that's always welcome. And honestly, that's pretty much it for the combat. It's good, like honestly quite good, but it's got problems. But a lot of it is just a lack of depth and weird input problems that might just be exclusive to me and a handful of people on Reddit. I don't know. Combat is simple, the platforming mediocre, but both are saved by amazing visual design. But what about the story, you might be asking? Well, I'm about to spoil it all for you, so if you don't want to hear about it, click off the video, go buy the game, or, I don't know, go do something else, because I'm about to spoil it. Okay? Well, with this story, I still don't really know. It's a hodgepodge of ideas. Some of them work, some of them really don't, but I do like the characters, so that's something. I guess we'll just start with characters then. Well, our protagonist Nilan is a memory hunter, someone who is gifted or skilled in the art of extracting, reading, and otherwise tampering with memories. The narrative never explicitly states it, but it seems like they were some kind of bounty hunter. We do run into a lot of memory hunters, some good, some bad, most in the middle. Nilan, however, for the majority of the game, does tread that line. She's the protagonist, sure, but some of the stuff you do in the game is a little evil, a little cruel, and Nilan herself does acknowledge it, but it never really goes anywhere for her character. It does for the narrative though, but not really for her. She leaves the same as she entered, in my mind anyway. We'll discuss this later. We also have Edge, our voice on the phone for most of the game. He gives us missions and is the leader of the Memory Hunter Resistance, and as such plays a pretty big part of the narrative. We also have a couple side characters who honestly exist so that cutscenes can happen, so I'm not even going to mention them. They're blissfully average and stereotypical, but still somewhat enjoyable. And it's time to actually cover the actual narrative, the chain of events, and so on and so forth. Let's just continue from the intro where we left off. So Nilan has escaped the memory wiping place in a coffin after being chased by a massive fuck-off robot. We emerge in the sewers where leapers are sniffing at coffins piled up. They pull out a leaper, and this tells us that the leapers are a byproduct of a failed memory wipe. It doesn't explain the physical appearance, but it might be better not to touch the one, because leaper sounds oddly like leper, so that's kind of outdated. But we fight some, we kill some, and Edge tells us to head through the sewers into Slum 404, the poorest district of the city, and also where Edge's friend Johnny is waiting for us. He owns a bar, so we have a quick chat. He keeps calling us sister. Maybe something he learned from Edge, who also chronically calls us sister. We get changed into our normal attire and we get jumped by an assassin, Olga Sedova. And then Nilan does something really cool. Yeah, really cool and totally non-invasive at all. She enters her mind into a recent traumatic memory, which also explains why she's here after us. And a cool thing this game does is, this is not a cutscene. This is actually gameplay. We have to rewind and fast forward through the memory, finding errors that we can exploit. The ultimate goal is to make Olga believe that Dr. Quaid killed her husband during the memory transfer. We ultimately do that, and this makes Olga basically change sides as she now thinks that Memorize is a bad company that does bad things, like kill her husband. It doesn't explain why she accepted the job in the first place, but I guess since she was already on the job and we're changing her memory and not actual time travel, I guess it makes sense. Olga, however, legit only serves as a purpose of providing transportation once or twice during the game. That's kind of a waste of a literal assassin, but alright then. Edge's next master plan is to enter the new Bastille, the place where the fellow heirists are imprisoned, along with their memories. Edge believes that Nilan's could also be there, but there's just a small problem with that. The new Bastille was hidden underwater in a massive dam constructed in the remains of Saint Markel, a suburb of Paris, I think. That district was flooded some year prior, and a dam was constructed to hold the water back. So we sucked the memories out of its designer, who also lives in a nice little posh area of town. But that area of town, well, it's about to be fucking flooded because as part of Edge's plan, which he doesn't tell us about till after, is that opening the dam would also flood a number of districts around the city. Wealthy districts, sure, but they're full of people. They weren't responsible for the famine of Slum 404 or the memory wiping of memories, or the creation of Leapers, but Edge doesn't seem to care at all. Those districts and Slum 404, by the way, get flooded, a large sum of people die with many more displaced. But hey, now we can enter the prison, so that's cool. But this giant robot says no. So we fight it, and I have to say, that roar, that is one of the coolest effects I've ever seen, ever. I love that. Bye bye arms. We kill it, and we descend into the prison. The prison is somewhat eventless. We do learn that the prisoners here are quite literally, without memory. They don't even know that the world exists outside of the prison. This place is run by Madame, a seriously fucked up woman who takes pleasure in punishing the inmates, who are quite literally not even the same people they were when they committed whatever crime they did. We do end up defeating her by entering her mind and doing some mind fighting, I guess. It's a great fight, and I won't spoil too much of it here. With her done and dusted, we release the memories back to the inmates, freeing heaps of memory hunters, and probably a couple pedophiles, a few murderers, a couple rapists, kidnappers, terrorists, God knows really. But we do get our memories back as well. Well, some of them. We remember the crime that got us caught. It's not exactly a good crime we did. We didn't like save someone's life or something. We took one, indirectly, but still. A memorized commander, somewhat high in the food chain, is the target of a previous mission. We remix his memory so that he kills his wife in a drunken rage. Having just suddenly remembered that he did this, he just kind of grabs a gun and offs himself just as his wife walks into the room. Nilland is shocked at this, but this gives us a glimpse into the kind of person that she was. She was not a good guy, at least not in the traditional sense. Modifying memories is one thing, and it's a bad thing, but making someone kill themselves? That might be worse than murder in my eyes. With her memories regained, Nilland, during an inter-chapter monologue, talks about this as well.
The memory of my crime is gnawing away at my soul. I pushed a man to suicide. What else have I done? Worse? Edge only sees cause for celebration. Our liberated comrades have remembered their credo and taken up the fight against sense and technology once more. And now he wants to strike at the heart of the reconversion project and smash Memorize forever.
Edge preaches his next plan, and it is a big one. Remixing the head of Memorize, the CEO, Cecilia Cartier-Wells, to make her see the pain that this technology is causing. Of which pain they are referring to, I don't know, which is a problem I'm going to get into right now. The technology to remove, change, or otherwise view memories is not necessarily a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if it's being abused, and sure, in places it is. Like for example, Madame in the prison is abusing it. But that's, as far as we've seen in the game, that's kind of it. Leapers are a side effect of the memory deletion process. So the only bad thing is forcing people to have memories deleted. And that only seems to happen in prisons. So prisons are bad in Neo Paris, that's all I know. Memorize has built a technology that is actually super helpful to the average person. And the errorists hate it? Why? Well, they never really touch on it. I assume it's because they want it to be the way it was prior to Memorize, but they abuse it more than the average person does. They change memories without thinking of the consequences. It's just a bit weird, really. Plus, Edge is just really angry all the time about nearly everything. He's just pissed. Sure, I mean, that means the name fits for sure, but it does really make you doubt him throughout the game. Is Edge actually fighting for the people? Or is he just bitter and angry about this because something happened to him? Well, we'll get to that later. So, Cecilia Cartier-Wells. We hop into her memory, a memory of a car crash, probably the one that took her legs. She has a daughter in the back who has the same name as us.
Stop it, Lillian! Calm down right now! You'll get your gift at home!
Interesting. And yeah, that's the twist. We have a mother-daughter moment, we fuck off because Edge just told us a bad request. A random hacker we talked to for like a minute an hour ago has been captured and is being held in the Bastille basement again. When we get there, it's too late. He doesn't really remember who he is. No, whatever. It's a stupid side thing. The real bombshell, however, is that Dr. Quaid, the doctor in Ogler's memory, is actually researching a way to control the Leapers through their Memorize implant. It's hinted at that this would basically be a private army for Memorize. He even goes against your mother's orders, who tells him to stop. That is until Johnny Greenteeth, a former co-worker, shows up and kills him, who is a Leaper who appears to have his memories somewhat intact. We take him down and we leave, but Bad Request dies saving us. Sad days, dude, sad days. And with all of that, all of Memorize's secrets were dealt with, minus one. Edge tells us about the Conception Cube, Memorize's HQ, in the location of H30, or H30, I can't remember, the central server that controls everything. In the cube, we find our dad, who is just really sad, and he has like our childhood memories circling him. We remix him to make him believe that he accidentally killed us by fucking with our memories, because sure, that's a good idea. This does make him see the errors of his ways, so it did work. And he does understand what happened, as he obviously has remixed people before. He did remix us and make us forget the accident that nearly killed our mum. So we make up, our mum arrives, and convinces him to let us go shut down H3O. And well, here's the real twist. H3O is an AI, and it's technically our brother in a weird way. Our father made it to replace us, and it is also made up of all the bad memories that everyone deleted or replaced. Its first memory was actually of our car accident. Oh, and H3O is Edge, by the way. That's the big twist.
Edge is H3O. It hit me. It's obvious.
I really want to die. I didn't lie to you.
Who are you? Really?
I am Edge. I am a spontaneous entity born from the putrid pits where everyone flushed their most horrible and painful memories. I am H3O. My first memories are the tears of a girl. I am the child of Memorize and its worst enemy. I am the father of the Leapers and their grim reaper. I am your friend. You must kill me.
And if I don't want to?
There is no choice, sister. I will force you to confront me, and if you do not win, I will destroy you.
Edge is literally all the bad memories of the world. That's why he's so angry. It's a really cool idea. What happens if a person was just bad memories? Well, you get a hate-filled rebel who wants to break the system apart and offer no solution to the problems that would arise from breaking the system. H3O begs us to kill him, so we kill Edge.
I'm sorry, Edge.
It wasn't your fault, sister. Finish me. Now. The pain is dissolving, and I go with it. In a few seconds, my memories will be returned to the people. Adieu, Nilin. Remember you soon.
Killing him releases all the memories back into the world. Every suicide, breakup, weird event, whatever it is, it's back with their owners now. And Nilin finishes the game by monologuing about how memories should be lived with, not replaced. She has a family and a damaged world to heal. And that was Remember Me. And honestly, it's pretty good. And as you can tell, the narrative is quite good. I don't normally talk about them for that long, but I did for this one. It's enjoyable, with characters that are complex and likable, which is good, as it takes up at least half the game just talking to people and doing cutscenes and character building moments. Like, you can play the game without interacting with the narrative, but that would be a hollow experience. But the big question is, should you buy Remember Me? Yes, you should. It's a brilliant little game that honestly I should have picked up earlier. Is it the best game ever made? No. But it's pretty good. It's got some weird decisions, sure. I'll own that. But ultimately, those weird decisions make the game a little bit more interesting. So I recommend it. And if you would recommend this video to a friend, or if you liked it or whatever, you should like, subscribe, hit the little bell, I think that's the right order, and I'll see you in the next one.